Magny Cours in the heart of France, the venue for the first of the LG Super Racing Weekends 2002. We've seen the European touring cars in action, we've seen the Formula Renaults, now it's the chance of the FIA GT Championship to go through its paces. Well, let's take a look at this French Grand Prix venue, the Magny Cours circuit. It's a combination of high speed, corners, long straights, and, well, two chicanes and two very demanding hairpin corners. The first, the famous Adelaide hairpin, and through the Nürburgring chicane on the return leg, the Imola chicane, and the final chicane and lycée hairpin to end the lap in a heavy braking downhill flurry. It's a real course of contrast. It demands good high-speed grip, which means big wings. It also demands good straight-line speed, which means small wings, and it takes a lot out of the drivers and the brakes in the braking zones. Good evening, my name is Martin Haven, alongside me Jamie Davis, and Jamie, weather really couldn't be better, probably not too hot to make it a factor in this race, and so we're looking as ever at accident damage, fuel and tyres as being the critical elements in this 3-hour marathon.
Yeah, we're just looking at the pictures there. I mean, obviously it's a nice blue sky. They're not going to have any rain, I don't think, this weekend. And just apart from a slight wind which is blowing, it's perfect conditions for the race.
Well, it's been really warm and sunny. It's real shirt sleeve weather for once. The grid girls not absolutely freezing. Christophe Bouchut, the reigning champion, of course, and the Labre Viper. Last year he claimed it was the most standard car on the grid, despite telling us midweek how much work they've done on the grid, also still claiming that it's a very standard car. It's got a 2001 spec engine. They don't yet have the sequential gearbox that most of the others have, and the strategy with NGT champion David TERRIEN to try and go as quickly as possible.
Merci.
Well, time for everybody to relax before the off, but from then on it'll be 3 hours of strain and stress, not just for the drivers but also for the pit crews. For the GT cars, 2 stops will be the order of the day. For the NGT cars, well, depends what you're in. Ferrari should 1 stop it, they did all last year, but the new spec cars, 2 of them, have got a little more power, which might put a question mark over that. And the Porsches, well, they should 2 stop. They did all last year, but the Freisinger team think they might be able to squeak by on 1.
Jamie, come on, water. You have all the good conditions today, dry weather, good tire, new engine.
Yeah, the weather's good, everything's nice, car's okay, so let's hope for a good race. It's always difficult at the start, but...
A new strategy with Nicolas Springer.
We don't know yet. We play it by ear throughout the race.
Thank you very much.
Well, the first strategy always for Lister is to stay out until everybody else has stopped for fuel in the front running group, so we can expect Jamie to come in as late as he possibly can with the tank capacity to hand over to Nicolas Springer. Now, Jamie, both Lister cars have got a full-speed professional driver. Both have got what you could really only term as an enthusiast amateur. Nicolas Springer with Jamie Campbell-Walter, and alongside Bobby Verdenroe, Paul Knapfield, who's only in his 2nd year of racing cars. Interesting concept to have a sort of pro-am in both cars, whereas if you were looking for outright pace, you would put the 2 fast guys together.
Yeah, for outright pace, obviously that would be the best situation, but you know, this championship is professional and amateur alike, and basically the championship thrives as well, having the amateurs in there because they're bringing in the money, and it keeps everybody employed.
Well, the pace car pulls off. The Lister is on pole position. Christophe Bouchut trying to come alongside Jamie Campbell-Walter from the start. Bobby Verdenroe in the 2nd Black Lister Storm there. The 2nd Labre Viper driven by Vincent Voss. And right behind him we ride with Fabio Bobini. Bobini, a race winner at Le Mans in the NGT category for Porsche. Steps up to the big class, the GT category, with the Labre competition team. And he, with the BELMONDO team rather, chasing that Labre car. Bobby Verdenroe right behind. Then Mike HEZEMANS, and the 2nd of the HEZEMANS stroke racing box Vipers, because the two have joined forces this year, Team Carsport Holland Racing Box, and that's started by Fabrizio Golin. But a good battle here already. Opening lap, Babini getting stucking into another Viper. Look at that. Nice little following shot there. Babini really sticking to his task. Not bad opening lap for a first drive in a Viper, is it?
Exactly. I mean, you know, they're all pushing fairly hard now, trying to obviously make gaps on other people. Just got to see really now how this pans out and just see what situations they're going to be doing, obviously, with the stops as well.
Now, lots of changes in terms of cars, teams, driver lineups and so on. Christophe Bouchut's Jean-Philippe Belloc partnership last year, that's dissolved, and he is, as Jamie Campbell-Walter has a little weave there under power, he is now driving with David Terrien, who was in the 360 Modernist that won the title last year, but also in the Lister team, not just Julian Bailey leaving and Paul Natfield arriving in the second entry, but also changing tyres. They've gone from Michelin to Dunlop, but the car behind, the Labra car, and indeed the two cars behind, both Labra cars, on Michelin tyres, almost uniquely in the GT field. So there's a balance of a tyre war going on here as well. We'll have to see how the wear pans out.
Yeah, it's quite interesting, having talking to Jamie Campbell-Walter just a couple of days ago. Obviously, they're fairly happy at the moment with the Dunlop tyre situation. They've done some testing, obviously, with the tyre, and at the moment, I think they're fairly happy.
Got a good relationship with Dunlop, because although they've raced on Michelin in the FIA GT series for several years, they have raced in Britain on Dunlop, so they know the team and the team know them. Mike Hazemans putting in the move on Bobby Verden-Rowe, moves up a spot. And again, Babini, just having really harassed the back of Vincent Vos on the opening lap, drops back a fraction. Lead pair getting away, though, from the rest of the field. Looks as though we're already seeing a sort of two-tier Division 1, even in the GT class. But, oh dear, yes, nasty little spin there. The 58th car is the Auto Orlando car of the Austrian Philipp Peter, and being tapped from behind, I think, there, as they came out of the hairpin. Yes, look, red paint on the back of the car. I'm sure he knows who was responsible. We didn't quite catch it, but no other damage done to anyone. Let's have a look. And in fact, it wasn't red, it was the 55 car. That's the second Freisinger Motorsport entry. That's Stefan Dowdy, the Frenchman. So Dowdy taps the Austrian. Philipp Peter, incidentally, just back to racing after having a monster Super Cup shunt, Porsche Super Cup race shunt at Imola, which concussed him for several days, but passed fit to race this weekend. So Campbell-Walter with 0.3 of an advantage over Bouchut, but look, 4.5 seconds ahead of Vincent Vos in the second Labra Viper in third spot. Lap 7, Jamie Campbell-Walter leading the race. This is the opening race of the FIA GT Championship, and on its Dunlop tyres, the Lister Storm motoring away from the Labra competition Viper. And this isn't something we saw an awful lot of last year, the Labra car being left behind for too long by the Listers. Depending on the nature of the racetrack, it seems to seesaw the balance between the two. But Bouchut complaining that they've still got an old engine and an old gearbox. You can see from the width of the rear wing, though, this is in every other aspect a 2002 car. And Babini was ahead there of, oh no, in fact that's not Vos, that is Mike Hazemans, who's just dived past Fabio Babini. So Hazemans picks up another spot, he goes up into fourth. So the caption wrong there. And Hazemans came by like Babini was on the brakes there, didn't he?
He did. He must have had a very good exit from Adelaide hairpin there. Just managed to just push it straight at the inside.
So he took a good run on Babini. Babini using a lot of steering wheel, Jamie.
Yeah, it's possible maybe he's suffering a little bit with balance on the car at the moment. Possibly maybe some understeer, having to put a bit more lock on the car to get it through the corners at the moment.
Looked to be adjusting something there with his right hand as he took it off the sequential gear lever, notice, in the Vipers now. Sequential gearbox, part of their setup for almost everybody, and almost everybody as well now using Swiss-built Heine Marder engines, or Swiss-serviced Heine Marder engines. And a little bit of a rankle there with the Carsport Holland guys who worked with Marder so much last year to develop their engines, and now Marder has that knowledge that he can build into his others, so they're not quite as happy as Larry about that, but still Hazemans using the performance of that very modified Carsport Holland car. But a big shock in qualifying, brake disc exploded on the first lap. And when drivers say that, Jamie, normally it means it cracked and the pedal went all funny and it was horrible. But it was more like a small bomb going off in the front of the car, wasn't it?
I was quite surprised. I've not actually seen it myself before like that. I mean, it was apparently just on the out lap, just went out onto the circuit. And the disc just basically exploded and took the whole front sort of right-hand corner of the car off. So bits of bodywork flying off everywhere, and unfortunately that put them out of the qualifying session.
Certainly did put them out of the running for Superpole, but they did get themselves in the last 15 minutes back on track and managed to start inside the top dozen. So again, there's the repeat of the move on Babini, straight by. It looks like HEZEMANS has got a very fine handling chassis, and I think, Jamie, the only reason he's not troubling the Labra #1 car, the reigning champion Christophe Bouchut, and Jamie Campbell-W at the moment is due to the number of cars he's had to pass to get up into third spot.
Yeah, it's quite possible. I mean, obviously it's been holding him up. The other problem with that as well is that he's probably having to push the tyres a little bit too hard when he's following other cars. It's making his car move around a lot more and generating too much heat in the tyres.
Classic stuff here. Look at that. Pulls out to the inside, dives past under braking. We ride on board with him now. And again, you can see the sequential gear shift here, but using not the sort of T-bar that they had in the Babini car, but a more traditional looking gear lever, but still it's got that backwards and forwards action that we're so used to seeing in Super Tourers and so forth. But he is certainly pulling away from this group. Bobby Verden-Rowe there on the back in 6th spot in the second of Lister Storms. And at the moment, not quite able to offer an answer to Babini. Here is our NGT leader. Fastest in practice, Stefan Ortelli for Freisinger Motorsport. 996 GT3R. Notice not an RS, as you see in the British GT Championship. The rules in the FIA series only allow you to introduce a new car every other year. So although there is a 2002 spec Porsche, they can't use it, and how frustrating is that? But Ferrari are on a different cycle, and they have introduced a 2002 car, because last year they were using a year-old chassis, so it sort of goes in swings and roundabouts rhythm. But there is the second car, the reigning champion team, JMB Ferrari, and Christian Pescatori at the wheel of that car. And not an awful lot to choose between them, but it looks as though, as he told us yesterday after qualifying, our Freisinger friend is really trying to build up as big of an advantage. What was he reckoning? He needed something between
25 seconds,
25 and 35 seconds of an advantage before he made the first of what they think is almost going to have to be 2 pit stops in the Porsche. It certainly was last year, and although they intend to run the car fully lean, they're not convinced that that's actually going to be enough. But what they're trying to do then, obviously, is with the engine management fully leaned off, is death the car to build up as big an advantage as possible.
I think basically from what I was hearing, that they're trying to lean the engine off to get more fuel economy out of the car. So obviously they won't be able to push to the absolute maximum of the car performance because they won't get the power. But that should stretch their fuel mileage to hopefully make just a one-stop race for them. So we'll just have to see what happens with that one, I think, at the moment.
Well, of course, if you don't have power from the engine, what you have to do is stay on the gas longer and get on the brakes harder and later and use the tyres more. They were hoping that the front tyres would live the whole race. They figured they would certainly need to change the rear tyres in their first pit stop, hopefully just before half distance. But Ortelli smoking it into the Lycée hairpin, as we saw from the onboard shot from the Ferrari. But it doesn't look like Pescatori's hanging around as well. It's not exactly a conservative drive from him either.
Not at all, not at all. You can just see Pescatori there as he's changing gear. He's just got the paddles on the gear shift as well, so he doesn't have to move the hands off of the steering wheel. Just goes up and down the box on the paddles, just like Formula 1.
On board with our NGT leader, the Monegasque Stefan Ortelli, former Le Mans winner for Porsche. And there aren't too many people that I would want to put in a 911 against him on a one-to-one head-to-head lap. He is a very, very quick Porsche peddler indeed. And already we're in traffic then. That's Gerald and Christian Reeve, the father and son pairing, and Manfred Uras in their Proton Porsche, being passed by Vincent Vos. And oops, a daisy. The Polish Porsche, they're having a bit of a bobble over the curbs. Pretty high there on the exit of Adelaide, aren't they?
It's just a very important corner, obviously, to get the traction out of there, but you don't really want to be going over the curb too much, because obviously that's going to upset the car.
Now then, somebody, and I don't know where this is, I don't know who was in that dust cloud.
Like a pile of dust and no car.
Indeed, somebody's gone quite a long way off. Oh, Bobby Verdon-Rowe leaves Big Darkies on the track as he tries to come inside the Auto Orlando car. It's one of the two Ferraris and the 22 car. That is Enzo Calderari. Two BMS Scuderia Italia Ferraris, ex-ProDrive cars, serviced by ProDrive but run by BMS Scuderia Italia. They've only had the cars about a week or so they are very unfamiliar with them, but Calderari showing with Lilian Brinner and Frederick Dorr, and Calderari and Brinner, of course, very well-known Ferrari drivers. They've been racing...
steering off the track.
He certainly is, and oops. Looks like he could have saved that, perhaps.
Yeah, I think maybe if he just lifted a left foot brake just slightly there, he just could have got the front to turn in. And the problem is, in that type of corner, as soon as you put the wheel onto the grass, you're just off.
Drags you in, doesn't it? Very used to the Ferrari 333 SP. They've been racing in the FIA World Sports Car Championship over the last few years, Calderari and Brinner. But this front engine 550 GT, clearly a very different device. So, 11 laps in, and a bit of a lock-up for Jamie Campbell-Walter then at the Adelaide hairpin. Perhaps somebody's leaving a little bit of gravel or gunge there after an off-track excursion, almost from the opening laps in a GT race. That tends to happen. Mike Hazemans still closing down the race leaders, and Hazemans pushing very, very hard indeed from a less than encouraging grid position. He was in 7th spot in the starting lineup.
Locking the inside wheel, pushing quite hard into there.
As we saw, somebody looking up behind him as well. Might possibly be the chasing Viper, trying to avoid a slower car as well at the apex. Hazemans is looking pretty quick though. Good lap times through practice, and only that exploding brake disc really completely destroying their chances of a front row grid position. It's been an interesting year, I think, the battle between that car, particularly the Labra Vipers, the Belmondo Vipers, which should, I think, produce a little bit more pace than they're showing at the moment, and of course the Lister Storms, which at the moment seem to be about the quickest cars out there.
Yeah, and in fact, Bobby Verdon-Rowe's car still a little bit down on horsepower, obviously, to Jamie's car. I think Jamie's got the latest spec engine in there, and I've heard it's maybe 40 or 50 brake horsepower, actually more than what Bobby Verdon-Rowe has at the moment.
Well, that seems actually to be a very accurate representation, because Verdon-Rowe in the 2001 car doing what Lister's did last year, which was kind of chase the Labra competition car a lot, whereas Jamie seems to have a little bit of the edge on the Labra competition car, which is running its 2001 spec engines. So I wonder what the jump forward will be for BOUCHUT at Silverstone if he gets a new engine and stops whinging on about still having the old one. BOUCHUT still chasing. But here, the battle further back. Oh dear!
Looked like that locked up.
That is the best place to the Belmondo cars, backed off heavily into the tyres, and that looks like the left front suspension is damaged, because that wheel is at a very strange angle. But he's put it in gear, Jamie, and tried to move. You could see the car then shudder and stall.
It was quite a strange one, that. It looked like he had cleared the corner.
This is on the straight after the Adelaide.
On the car, though.
Yeah, look at that. Snaps right and then spins him round to the left, whips it off the track and into the tyres on the straight. I'll give Abini the benefit of the doubt. I think the car is at fault in that one. Opening race in the LG Super Racing Weekend FIA GT Championship, Magny Cours, 22 laps in. Jamie Campbell-Walter increasing inch by inch the margin over second place man and reigning champion Christophe BOUCHUT in the Viper. But what's this? Belmondo, Paul Belmondo in trouble with the remaining BMS Scuderia Italia Ferrari, and the 23 car started by Jean-Denis Delatraz, the man who first raced a Viper in the series 2 years ago with First Racing, a Ferrari rather. Well, Belmondo back in the pits, we saw that in replay. And where's he off to? He is off to shout at Lilian Brinner and the rest of the team. Not at all a happy bunny. I don't know who was in the car, says Paul Belmondo. Pushed me off the track at the chicane, but when I got to 180, he just pushed me straight up the back. Lap 36, Jamie Campbell-Walter leads for Lister, opening race in the FIA GT Championship, going very nicely for the black cars. Christophe Bouchut 18 seconds back, and Bobby Verden-Rowe in the second Lister Storm, now just 6 seconds behind him. He's worked his way up from 6th to 3rd position in the opening stint. We've lost one Belmondo car permanently, probably due to some drive chain problem. Belmondo himself in the second entry has been pushed off, but we have still got plenty of racing to go, even though we've lost a Ferrari of the, in fact, 2 of the 3 Ferraris, because the Philippe Alliot David Halliday Ferrari didn't even make the grid. 5th quickest in qualifying, but a broken gearbox put them out. And here is a new car. I haven't seen any of these yet so far in the race. This is the RWS Motorsport car of Luca Riccitelli, no longer NGT. This car is a GT spec Porsche 996. They basically twin-turboed the motor, hogged it out to 3.95 litres in the hope of making it a Viper-beating car that Porsche don't make themselves. Well, looks like they have got more development work to do on that. NGT leader in the middle of this sandwich, about to be lapped as Bouchut comes in. Bouchut in the pits, he will hand over to David TERRIEN. And Christophe Bouchut coming in on lap 35. Lap 35, so that's very early, I think. We're saying the gaps are definitely smaller than last year. There are some differences because of different drivers. We're happy. We're suffering a little bit from a lack of preparation, but I'm happy to see that we're able to battle for the lead. In comes Jamie Campbell-Walter. Campbell-Walter in from the lead for his pit stop, lap 38. He will hand over to Nicholas Springer. And fans of Jamie will know that he's got a brand new helmet design. All weekend I've been meaning to ask him why on earth it's completely different, but it is. Lawrence Pierce at the front of the car overseeing things. Tyre change, all 4? Yes, looks like it. So let's catch up with Jamie Campbell-Walter.
We got no problems. We had a nice lead, but it was very hard to pull away, so obviously it's the first time on the Dunlop tyres. They were fantastic throughout the stint, and you know, let's hope Nick can do a good job. We'll wait and see.
So the lead car then is in. Right behind it to Mike HEZEMANS, car number 3. Now he's already had a stop and go penalty.
Ferrari was already outside of the yellow flags, but he was so far out, I was inside, I came next to him and I stopped. I lost 5 seconds and I told on the radio, I stopped, please tell him. I think it's very unfair. You have to look at the video. So if it was that, I was completely right. If it was another place, I don't know, then they were right. But I'm sure it was with the Ferrari. And I told them I stopped, I lost 5 seconds a lap, and I think that they have to respect.
Well, HEZEMANS working hard to get into the top 3, and he one of 4 cars pinged by the stewards around lap 30 for apparently passing under yellow flags. But as he said, he undid all the work that he'd done there, and I think he feels a little bit correctly that maybe the penalty was a touch harsh for all that. However, now a rash of pit stops for the leaders, Jamie Davis. That leaves Nicholas Springer in the lead in the freshly fueled, freshly tyred Lister Storm.
This is going to be the real test now. Obviously, Nicholas is new to this a little bit, so it's going to be a big pressure for him. Just really now has to keep calm and not make any mistakes, even if he's not quite on the pace. Just needs to keep it clean, and you know, we'll just see what happens with him. But I think as long as he can do that, then it should be pretty good for them.
Cautious opening lap from Nicholas, but he really does realise that, like in Le Mans mode, Rule number 1 is bring the car home. Rule number 2, worry about the position that it's in. Second place there, the number 1 Labra car, passing one of the 4 JMB Ferraris. And the ones with the blue noses below that white stripe halfway down, those are the 2001 spec cars, as far as I can tell. They seem to have painted them differently. No sort of slew of different windscreen strips that I could particularly make out from checking them all in the garage. There is the second of the Lister Storms, no longer Bobby Verden-Rowe. He's now handed over to Paul Knapfield. Raced last year in the British GT Championship with Tim Sugden, who was racing FIAs with Steve O'Rourke, that we saw, of course, on Eurosport. But Knapfield, well, he's a property developer and raced in karts a little bit in his late teens, early 20s, but this is only actually his second year in racing a car, so he was taking a while to bring himself up to speed in qualifying, but not doing too badly either, keeping his nose clean as well, working nicely through the traffic there. Good decisive stuff from him. And here comes Mike Hazemans. 2 pit stops, don't forget, 1 for the stop and go. Couldn't do a tyre stop if he wanted to then, and the fuel stop, but he kept it going right to the end of the fuel window to stay on schedule for the race and not completely screw their plans. NGT leader yet to stop, still Stefan Ortelli in the Freisinger Porsche. Yet to stop also second in the NGT category, the Ferrari of Christian Pescatori. Yet to stop, and third place in the NGT category, a brand new car and team, Jürgen von Gartzen sharing his Porsche with Ian Kahn. And they have really worked themselves well up the order. Just an hour into the race and they are in a podium position. There is the second placed Ferrari. Pescatori won the title last year with David TERRIEN in NGT, but he shares the 50 car this year with ex-F1 ace Andrea Montermini. So Springer leads from TERRIEN in second place. The gap coming down little by little. And the Belmondo car, well, that is the number 11 machine driven by Claude-Yves Gosselin now, after Paul Belmondo was knocked off the track earlier on. Eurosport at Magny Cours for the opening race in the FIA GT Championship, part of the LG Super Racing weekend. Just finished 50 laps, so just about half distance. And in the pits at the moment, the number 50 Ferrari, the second car in NGT, Christian Pescatori, the reigning champion, handing that over to Andrea Montermini as we watch the battle for the lead. This is the Christophe Bouchut reigning champion car, driven now by second driver David TERRIEN. Belmondo Viper spins off. That's car number 11. Paul Belmondo handed that over to Claude-Yves Gosselin. Gosselin drops it off the road right in front of the leader. That will have held up just momentarily. Nicholas Springer in the Black Lister Storm. And this is the battle for the lead now. TERRIEN has reeled in Springer. And in third place you can see the fourth of those cars, not the red and white Ferrari, that's 2 laps down now, but the number 3 Carsport Holland car being driven by Anthony Kumpen. He's done him quite cleanly there. And well, TERRIEN with more experience perhaps, certainly through his racing career, than Nicholas has. Nicholas has been racing in the FIA series the last couple of years, but before that just a businessman. Right behind him, Paul Knapfield spins out of the final corner in the second Lister Storm, and he was in 4th place there as well. Now we see that occasionally when somebody gets a touch too much curb and a touch too much power combined, Jamie. It looks like that was just a little bit of keenness to try and chase down the guys in front.
Oh yeah, I mean, obviously they want to push as hard as they can and move on forward, but this stage of the race, if they haven't quite stopped yet, the tyres are getting quite old, the cars are moving around a lot more, and it's just so easy just to be able to jump on that power just fractionally too soon, and the rear lights up and around it goes.
Well, Nicholas Springer passed now for second place as well by the Carsport Holland car. So Anthony Kumpen moves up into second. The Ferrari, I remind you there, the red and white car, is off the lead lap, so it's not a factor in this battle, except that Springer couldn't find a way past without shoving it, and didn't want to shove it. So that allowed Anthony Kumpen to work a gap as Springer got baulked. But Nicholas dropping back a little bit quicker than I might have expected now from these two. They have been reeling him in the last couple of laps fairly quickly, but dropping back a fraction. Of course, when he took the car on from Jamie Campbell-Walter, he had new tyres. So did Paul Knapfield when he took the car over. And the 52 Ferrari in, so they're all coming in around this half-distance mark. Nearly 90 minutes gone in the race. And the 77 Russian car, that's Vasilev, started it. Fomenko has taken it over now and spun, I think, almost straight out of the pits. Not quite literally, but almost. And look at this battle for the race lead now. This is the Carsport Holland car chasing the Labra competition car. Two Vipers, different concepts, and we believe that the Carsport Holland car probably the quicker of them, Jamie.
I think so. You know, they're doing a good job, and it's pushing very hard for now. It seems quite good for them, so I'd imagine they're going to get a good result.
Now, what we are seeing, however, is that the Ferrari is scootling away in front of them, so that Ferrari clearly still going quickly and much lighter on fuel, I would say, than these two guys. They dive inside one of the two Certec Porsches, the silver and blue cars.
For what I can gather with the Ferrari, just talking to Bassini over the weekend, they seem to have had a lot of problems with the engine misfiring over the practice session, so I don't think they showed the true potential of the car. Maybe it's coming better for them, obviously, for the race.
NGT being led by Stefan Ortelli in his Porsche still, as the leaders carve their way through the field. That's the second of the Freisinger Motorsport Porsches they've just passed, and that is Stefan Daudi and Jirko Malacek, the Slovakian driver, and it's Malacek there. Gerald and Christian Reed sharing the red and black Proton car as ever, with Manfred Duras with them for this race as well, making it a three-strong effort, so they'll spend more time in the pits than you would like in a competitive run, but then they all, I expect they probably divide it exactly evenly between the three of them.
What was quite interesting actually was to see the JMB Ferrari in the pits, and it wasn't quite half distance, so the advantage it seems that they had last season where they could make one stop perhaps is not going to be this year. With the extra little bit of power they have from the engine at the moment, maybe it's using fractionally more fuel, and it looks to me like they may have to do a second stop later in the race.
Well, that is a question mark certainly that the Porsche people were aware of, as well as the JMB people, so hence that battle is going to be a very nail-biting one at the end of the race as to who has to splash and dash first or who takes longer to do it. Now, we've just seen the change of lead there down into the Lycée hairpin, and Hezeman's Kumpen's car is now ahead of David Terrien's Viper. Race leader still David Terrien with an hour to go. The Carsport Holland car will need to make a final pit stop. It's done, it's one stop, it needs to do a second stop. The Horst Felbermeyer senior and junior Porsche going very slowly there. Car number one in second place, being left behind by the Carsport Holland team. David Terrien sharing it with Christophe Bouchut, who started that number one car. And into the pits does come the Carsport car. So we have already seen that Jamie Campbell-Walter has stopped the Lister Storm and taken over for the final stint. He took over from Nicholas Springer after Springer had been in around 40 minutes. Now, by my reckoning, that makes it a very long final stint for the Lister Storm crew. And we know that they can do 55 at a push 60 minutes. I think they have another stop yet to come.
We have a very good race. The only problem we had is that we had a stop and go, and there we lost some time. But yeah, our car seems to be very good. When I came out, I was in fifth position. I was able to go to the lead, and I think we can keep it as long as the car stays together. We can keep the lead.
Good stint by Anthony Kumpen in the middle, and in the pits also is the Labra competition Viper. Now they, like the Carsport car, have gone for a 1/3, 2/3 strategy because they've got a more evenly balanced driver lineup, let's say, than the Lister Storms. But the race leader is Jamie Campbell-Walter, having taken over from Nicholas Springer. Now, Jamie Davis, as we said, Nicholas only did a 40-minute element, so we may yet see a splash and dash at the end for Lister, which means again Jamie has to build up a big advantage.
Yeah, he's going to be pushing fairly hard now. Just wants to try and open up his bigger gap as he can, which will make that pit stop, which possibly might have to make a lot more comfortable, obviously.
So Campbell Walter pushing very hard. We think the two Vipers behind have fuel and are good to go, but the question mark remains over the race leader. Closing stages of the FIA GT opener at Magny Cours. 20 minutes to go. I told you the listers could only do an hour at maximum on fuel, and 40-minute stint by Nicholas Springer gave Jamie Campbell-Walter an hour and 20 minutes to do on a tank. And 20 minutes from the end, sure enough, in he comes for service. Campbell-Walter leads Jamie Davis by almost a minute. That has got to be a big enough margin.
I would say so, yeah. That's going to be fairly comfortable. They're not going to take much more than 30 seconds. I want 40 seconds in the pit lane, so they're still going to exit with at least 15 seconds, I would say, in the lead, and that's going to be ample for the rest of the race, I would say.
And look how much they know they've got of a safety margin. No rushing, no mistakes, no fumbles, no miscues. Nicholas Springer and Bobby Verdenreau watching from behind. And of course, overseeing everything as ever, the Lister boss Lawrence Pierce. And an absolute copybook pit stop. No sign of a Viper behind him. No sign in that shot either. There was somebody coming through the first turn, the Grand Curve, but I'm not even sure that that was the second place car. So Jamie Campbell-Walter comes in from the lead, stop and go, splash and dash rather, and goes back out into the lead. Second place, Mike HEZEMANS in the Carsport Holland car after a great opening stint from him, very good middle stint as well from Anthony Kumpen. And Christophe Bouchut in third place with David TERRIEN doing the middle stint in the Labour Competition Viper. So, well, that leaves us perhaps with the GT class sewn up. Question marks remain over NGT. Will the Ferrari make it all the way? Will they need more fuel? Will the Porsche need more fuel before it stops? Nianarim, incidentally, taking over from Stefan Ortelli in the Freisinger Motorsport car, took just 6 laps to get the lead back off the Ferrari, which had stopped earlier. So Nianarim doing a very strong second stint as well. There you saw HEZEMANS flying through the chicane. There you see Bouchut charging and carving his way through the back markers. So again, yeah, the NGT question mark might be the one that needs a little bit more answering. The Lister question has been answered. They can gas it and go, and as you said, failing mechanical disaster, keep it going all the way till the end. Carsport Holland car of Mike HEZEMANS with a 15-second margin back to Jamie Campbell-Walter after the pit stop. 3 laps later, it's out to 20 seconds. He is being reeled in by Christophe Bouchut's Viper. Looks like the battle is on Jamie Davis for second place, not for the lead in GTs. But here is the big question mark. Nianarim in the Freisinger Porsche stopped 55 laps they'd done, which is half distance. Now, they couldn't do that last year. They've leaned the car off as much as possible, but look at the advantage. They've got a 2-lap advantage over Christian Pescatore as he crossed the line, so that's actually a full lap and a bit more.
Yeah, that's surprising actually to see that caption there. I'm not entirely sure whether that's fully correct, but the 54 car is definitely running better on the fuel this season. 55 laps in the first stint was quite amazing, to be honest with you. So they're looking in good shape. If they can just make the one stop, then I think they've got it over the Ferrari this weekend.
Quite amazing, and also right by the skin of their teeth, because when he got out of the car, Ortelli said he actually cruised into the pits downhill because he was out of gas. Jamie Campbell-Walter and Nicholas Springer on the way to victory number 1, perhaps, in this FIA GT Championship of 2002. Just a few more minutes to go. The clock under 10 minutes and counting. 105 laps in the book. Probably maybe another couple after this one before they get to the 3-hour mark that decides the end of the race. It's not a distance race, it's a time race. And pretty copybook race, I would say, from the Lister team. Nicholas Springer did an excellent second stint, kept the car on the road and at a decent pace, no damage, handed over an intact car to Jamie Campbell-Walter, and despite their extra splash and dash fuel stop, Jamie has put it in the lead, kept it in the lead, and just reeling off the laps now.
Yeah, the Lister team are doing a great job this weekend. They keep chipping away and improving the car year by year. And I'd imagine Jamie's going to be well happy with the result this weekend if he can just keep going and push that win.
Carsport Holland in second place. Mike Hazemans with the wheel at the moment, but a good second stint from Anthony Kumpen as well. Brought that car from 5th place when he rejoined up into the race lead. And in 3rd place, Christophe BOUCHUT sharing with David TERRIEN, the reigning champion team. But I wonder for how long. Lawrence Pierce with this latest development of the Lister Storm. Jamie Campbell-Walter with their new extra powerful engine as well. A little extra bit of brake horsepower there. And the new combination of the Lister and Dunlop tyres seeming to work very well indeed. Tyre consumption has been very moderate, and that's been a part of the factor as well. Notice he didn't have to take on tyres with 20 minutes to go. They weren't shredded. He has got plenty of rubber under him. And, well, the NGT battle, there's one of the older Ferraris, just ahead of Jamie Campbell-Walter's Lister Storm. But at the moment, the reigning champions, the Ferrari Modena JMB racing car of Christian Pescatori and new partner Andrea Montermini in 2nd spot. The Porsche leads. Nianarim took over exactly at the halfway mark from Stefan Ortelli and is still on the track. 2 laps or so left. Wonder if we'll see him in the pits in those dying moments. That really would be high drama, wouldn't it? I think they were going to have a real NASCAR moment, Jamie Davis. With 2 or 3 laps to go, if you're almost certain that you're going to run out, what do? Do you come in and just take a splash and take the loss of time, or do you hold on and hope that maybe there might be like a last lap yellow or something to save you? No,
I think if you're absolutely certain that you're going to run out, then obviously you've got to come in and get some fuel into the car. You know, you can't gamble with just those couple laps to go that there's going to be a yellow flag. So I'd imagine if they have to, then they're going to have to come in.
So they think they might be able to make it. They did 55 laps on their first tank, which is quite incredible, stretching of the economy. Lister team look very relaxed. I tell you, I bet there's not a single fingernail left on anybody in the Freisinger team. Jamie Campbell-Walter cruising round now.
It's a good shot there of the surface, just as they're coming up to the Adelaide hairpin. Just see the reflection of the road, where it's just such a strange circuit here. It's very mirrored, not much grip from the circuit, and you could just see the light shining off of the road there.
Really polished, but still Campbell-Walter finding a way to find more pace than anybody else in this race, and on target for victory number 1 of this season for him. Checkered flag man we saw waiting in the starter's tower with his stopwatch, just checking whether the clock gets to the 3-hour mark before Campbell-Walter gets underneath him, and in which case it will be checkered flag this time round. If not, Jamie will have to go another lap, even if he arrives a second early. And I don't suppose Lawrence will make him slow down too much for the time. You never know, though. And this will be history indeed for Lister, because it will be win number 1 for Nicholas Springer. His first ever win in the FIA GT Championship is coming right now. The clock has ticked down to the 3-hour mark. That was probably a relatively casual final lap for Jamie Campbell-Walter, and he wins race number 1. Lister win, and it'll be Viper second and third. So he cruises up under the pit wall just to wave to the lads, well done. Little sideways flourish from Horst Felbermeyer out of the Lycée hairpin, but here comes our runner-up. It's Mike Hazemans with Anthony Kumpen sharing the car with him. And good advantage in the end over the Lara competition car. Maybe at Silverstone they might have a bit of extra horsepower and a sequential gearbox, and we may see them playing even more of a vital role. Certainly as champion team they will want to. 3rd place though, not a bad place to start, and Twan Hazemans there congratulating Lawrence Pierce and saying, hey, apart from that stop-and-go penalty, it'll be a tough job. But look at this. He's made it to the flag. Arm out of the window. Incredible. But is he going to be able to make it round on a slowing down lap? I don't know. Nianarim takes the checkered flag and the NGT win for the Freisinger Porsche team. Now that is a surprise.
I think there's going to be no one else in the pit lane more surprised than JMB for that one, I think.
Yeah. Well, there is the 51 car. That's not the second placed NGT Ferrari. That has yet to cross the line. They were some way behind in terms of time. And there it is. Christian Pescatori sharing that car with his new partner, Andrea Montermini. So Montermini takes the flag in 2nd place in NGT. And in 3rd place, the new team, Jürgen von Gartzen and Ian Kahn. New team, new car, top result. So there you go, that's how it was. Capellari and Golan there. That is the second of the Car Sport Racing Box cars. Voss in 5th place with Rosenblad doing the final, the middle stint in the number 2 Labra car. And the Ferrari, Johnny Delachaz and Andrea Piccini coming home in 6th. So they get points on their first race. But in post-race action, let's say, the JMB team protested the winning Porsche and it has been disqualified. Its fuel tank did not conform to the regulations, for which mean it may have had too much capacity.
Jamie Campbell-W from Liechtenstein, first on the podium, like last year.
Yeah, it's an unbelievable result, really. It's a hat-trick for us here, and I've got to say, the car, the tyres, my teammate, the whole team was fantastic. Everything went according to plan, and I must say I'm very surprised to win the race, because I did think that HEZEMANS and Labra would be in front of us, but we had a good strategy and the tyres were fantastic and the team did a great job in the pit stop.
Well, they did a great job. Good job too by the Freisinger Motorsport crew, but that disqualification will hurt them. Nianarim, a first-time winner in the series, doesn't get to actually keep that win. Anthony KUMPEN in 2nd place with Mike HEZEMANS. That's his best result in the series as well. I'll reiterate, Nicholas Springer, a first-time winner in the FIA GTs. And in 3rd place, Christophe Bouchut and David TERRIEN. Well, they both had plenty of podiums and victories, but this is TERRIEN's first GT class race, and on the podium with Labra, not a bad job at all. And that leaves us with the business in hand on Wednesday evening. Super Racing Magazine at 5 on British Eurosport, 6 across Europe. And don't forget, in a fortnight's time, Jamie and I will be back at Silverstone. I'll be working for Eurosport. He'll be driving a Ferrari. I wonder if I can mug him and swap that around somehow. We'll see you in 2 weeks' time if you are at Silverstone. Eurosport will be there with the British, with the FIA GTs and the LG Super Racing Weekend, and Jamie with the British GT Championship. So it just remains for me to say, Jamie Davis, thank you very much indeed for all your help, and looks like Silverstone might be quite good fun.
Let's hope so.
Let's hope so. Try not to give too many secrets away to the Porsche teams on air, so hopefully we haven't done that for him. And you can look forward to seeing so much action in a fortnight's time at Silverstone that if you miss it, I really don't think you're a motor racing fan of any kind at all. You perhaps even persuade the wife to come along if the weather's as nice as it's been here at Magny Cours. So from Jamie Davis, from me, Martin Haven, from the first LG Super Racing Weekend at Magny Cours, bye for now.